Whew. Hello, guys. So I wanted to use this episode to talk about just doing it. Oh God, this is one I struggle with for real. And I mean, when I say just doing it, I mean just doing it. Let's say that there's something that you hesitate on doing. There's something that you procrastinate on. There's something that you take a lot of time with. There's something that you don't want to do. The common narrative is just get it done. And I'm gonna say something pretty similar. But one thing that I find is that you need to sit with your emotions of why. I see a lot of hyper self-determinist, right? People who are like, you can do anything as long as you work for it. It's not necessarily true, you know. And when I see these hyper self-determinists, I see that they often self-chastise to achieve their goal. They use it looks like, I don't know, but it looks like they're using an internal mechanism of like negative reinforcement, right? When I look at it, I'm like, that's an internal mechanism of negative reinforcement to say like, you ain't shit. Like you tell yourself that, right? Like you'll tell yourself you ain't shit. You tell yourself you ain't shit, and that is like supposed to be the fuel to boost you. You know how I've understood it growing up, and I guess in a masculine or an American really just context, an American capitalist context, that you break yourself down in order to build yourself up, like you tear yourself to shreds. No, I don't think that's the best way. I think positive reinforcement as opposed to trauma response is it's a higher quality. It's a longer lasting battery. It's a longer lasting battery for determination and determinism. It's a longer lasting battery for getting you to your goals. And I wanted to talk about this. What is it? Just because I think it's important to know, but let me hit my disclaimer. I'm not an expert. Not an expert. Do not claim to be. These are just things that I've learned. Well, they're tactics. They're tactics and techniques that I've learned that help me get through emotional times and things that I'm feeling. And I hope to share it so that way it helps other people, get through the things that they may be feeling as well. So, what is it? Just doing it. I think the best way to execute a project or execute something physical, right, is to process the reasons why. Be comfortable processing the reason why, and be comfortable taking up the space to do so. I see on the one hand, some people spend a lot of time processing why. That's true. But some people don't. They don't process why. And they kind of continue to use self-loathing as a fuel. And that's not necessary. I don't believe that that's necessary. I think you really need to spend time with yourself when you're procrastinating on something. You don't want to do something. Don't. If you already have a mechanism that internally is like, that tells yourself you're going to fail or you're going to be this if you don't do this. I try, and I would advise you to do the same, to try to have more control over that. That's a trauma response. That's like, I'm afraid of this, so I'm going to do this. And that's like, fear in terms of like a violent tactic. And it can breed hate later on. Like you resent yourself. You'll resent yourself if you always run off of self-loathing and fear. Like eventually you're going to resent something about that process. So I think the best way to like execute something is to really dig in to why you don't want to do it. And be honest. Be honest about why do you not want to do this? Why do you not want to do this project? And let yourself sit with that. Let yourself sit, If it's something that you need help with, if it's something that you don't want to do, or something that you've convinced yourself that you want to do, but maybe it's not, maybe it's something that somebody else wanted you to do, get to the core. You have to get to the root, because if you don't really have the root of your motivation, even the things that you make, it won't be as polished. It won't be as good, just because you don't have that motivation, you don't have that passion, you don't have the root of your why, you don't have the root of your reasoning. And it could be that you might be doing the wrong thing. You never know. So I think it's always best to get to the root of that motivation and be comfortable taking that time. Be comfortable taking that time, because if you try to speed through it, you'll start to use more and more negative reinforcement, because you're trying to apply too much pressure on emotions that you may not have talked to, or they may just need more time. Sometimes emotions need a little bit of time. You cannot force them. They're not a factory. You have to take care of them. You have to nurture them. So that's really all I wanted to address for this video when it comes to just executing something. I think the most important takeaway from this is to really process your reasons why and peel back the layers of yourself to understand what it means to go for the thing you're going for. Sports, manual labor, art, whatever it is that you are trying to execute. Peel back those layers of why and continue to ask yourself why. Peel back those layers and try to replace any negative reinforcement that you've embedded in yourself with positive reinforcement. So that way you can have a better execution. Now, let's say there's one thing that I wanted to touch on, and I've been trying to remember it, before I close this video, what is it? Well, what if you reach the point that it's like, I do have to do something, but I don't like it. I have to do something, but I don't like it. And that's something I wanted to touch on before I close this video, because at the end of the day, you can have the most powerful why, but there are always, in an ideal, hopefully not, you don't always have to do this, but there's generally going to be things that you have to do that you have to hate. I have advised myself and the people that I talk to is to be fully conscious of that hate and work with it. Work with it. Do not repress it. That hate that you feel, that like, I hate this shit, put it in the labor. Be conscious of it, sit with it, work with it, talk to it. Don't repress it, don't repress it to be professional. Don't repress it to be, don't repress it for anything other than what you have to do. If it compromises what you have to do, then release it in a different way, right? Release it in a different way. But, be very conscious of that hate. Be very conscious of that anger. Be very conscious with that, because that anger is going to implicitly work with your unconscious mind to figure out a strategy. It's going to try to figure out a strategy to get you to the place that you don't have to do the thing you're doing anymore. But don't repress it so you end up resenting it. You don't want to create a situation to where there is something that you do want to do and you have a strong why for it. But to do that, you're going to have to do something that's under here. You're going to have to do something that you don't want to do, that you hate. That can impact your passion if you try to repress it and then keep going for your passion. Let that hate and anger sit with you, talk with it, work with it, be very present with it, so it can help you with strategies to make sure that you don't have to go through what you're going through anymore. And that's the final point. That's what I've been trying to remember this whole episode. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. And thank you to all my supporters on Patreon. Genuinely means the world. Every patron I get. If you want to support, please visit patreon.com/Keenan Dailey. And thank you.
Now, tonight's adventure into the unknown, into the world of...
I love you for it.
I love you too.